Hello, and welcome to the Wild Wild West podcast. My name is Richie Richey of the MHRT Network. Down directly below, we're going to mix things up a little bit here, Alex, throwing you off guard.
What the
We
hell,
have
man?
T3, who's repping the Raiders today. I want to thank T3 for joining us, um, giving us some feedback on his Las Vegas Raiders. For all you Raiders fans that are joining us today in the chat. Directly over here, we have the real Alex Givens, who has got some splaining to do after
Yeah, not
incident
me.
sorry,
Number two.
he's got number two to kind of explain and go through. Obviously, Alex, we might have some unique insight on the show here, just given our backgrounds and whatnot, which might be interesting. And then directly over that away, down in diagonal there is the one, the only Robert Garcia representing his Los Angeles Chargers. And dude, that is an orange jersey. At least it
Dude,
looks
it's
like.
yellow. I promise you it's yellow.
It looks
Okay.
pretty orange, dude. It
Yeah.
looks like the orange Dolphins jersey that they
Yeah.
had.
Oh god, those creamsicles.
Yeah. Where'd you get
Yeah.
that from?
So,
is that Alibaba?
this,
That's what I was
is
gonna say.
this is a DH Gate special.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, there it is.
So I was going to say, Robert, when you buy from the almost authentic stores
When you buy
online, from
Let's call
China,
it what it is. Let's call it spade a spade.
China. When you get the China stores, unfortunately, yellow is kind of yellow, and you get a little bit more orange than yellow, just because the orange dye is cheaper than the yellow dye.
That's pretty
Anyway,
creamsicle, man. I'm just saying.
You get what you
Yeah.
pay for.
Yes,
Yeah.
you do. Yeah. So I'm gonna we want to quickly capitalize what we have T3 here to give us a rundown, shakedown on the Vegas Raiders. We covered a lot of your draft picks, Tom, on the last show, or at least some of them, and we really wanted to dig into UDFA's. That's what we're delving into here. Since we didn't hear from you last show, interest in your thoughts on both draft and UDFA's as a merged combo, and interest in your takes and thoughts.
Well, guys, first of all, thanks for having me on. My time is going to be brief because I'm here at the airport. So for all you LA Charger fans out there, I'm actually wearing your blue and gold tonight. So I'm representing your colors, repping your colors. now, having said that, speaking of the Chargers, I got to thank you guys. When the draft rolled around, I just assumed that you all would pick up Brock Bowers and get a dynamic offensive weapon. And to be honest with you, when the Raiders pick came up, I was thinking Tuliase Fuaga because I thought that Bowers had already been picked at that point. So when they announced Brock Bowers, I thought, wait, hadn't he already been gone off the board? So it was a pick that surprised me, but one that for first time in a long time, Raiders fans can say they drafted the best player available. You know, I had him top 5 out of all the people that were available for the draft, and the fact that they were able to pick him up at 13 was just a shock to me. I think JPJ, the guard they picked up in the second round, is a really excellent pick. I wouldn't be surprised to see him starting. The third round pick, the guard, that was a little bit of a head scratcher for me, the guard tackle. I think that may be a little bit of a depth piece, but I'm not sure that that's a guy who's going to jump in and start right away. Your fourth round pick, your cornerback, he might be a starter as well. So, you know, people have asked me up and down the board, how did you grade the Raiders draft? And I'll say the same thing to you guys that I say every year. When it comes to grading a draft, I usually wait two to 3 years because you can't really tell how a draft class is going to do until they have really measured up their rookie year and then gone into their second and even third year. Now, when you look at that, the Raiders typically have had horrible draft classes because they haven't had a first-round pick to make it out of the chute. Much less have a first-round draft pick be re-upped. But now, hopefully, this is a difference. So we shall see. I'm thinking that the Raiders have added good depth. I did think that they were going to draft a quarterback. The fact that they didn't leads me to believe that they're pretty confident in what they have with Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew. Not saying that they're going to set the world on fire, but you never know. If you get good components around you and you play good offense and you have a good stable defense, which the Raiders are starting to build along that side of the ball, you can do great things. I mean, there have been Super Bowl winning quarterbacks who have not been stellar quarterbacks, who've been surrounded by great teams. You know, to the same token, you have excellent quarterbacks, game-changing quarterbacks who got thrown into the wolves and didn't have much to support them and ended up getting trashed. You know, the one that comes to mind right off the bat is Derek Carr's older brother David, who was drafted first overall in 2002.
A lot of first-round QBs.
Yeah, they threw him into
Justin
the wolves.
Fields.
Got him chopped up like a Dyson-matic. But
And he won the Browns took. Yeah.
Well, Tom, in fairness, he still kept the great hair.
Yeah, but I like what the Chiefs did. I was scratching my head with the Broncos and Rich. I did not catch all the comments, but I really felt like Bo Nix was a second round grade, and I think it was a stretch to get him when Brock Bowers, he was still on the board at the Broncos pick. I felt surely that would have been the play, but having said that, we'll see how things are going to go. I still think the Chiefs are the cream of the crop. You got to give my to the Chiefs.
Sadly,
we're
as
not
Ric
worthy.
Flair, as Ric Flair from wrestling used to always say, to be the man, you have to beat the man. And until somebody does that, we have to anoint the Chiefs and tell them that that's who they are.
Was that Ric Flair?
They're at the top. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Woo!
But overall, I think this was a very strong draft class this year. I think that there's going to be a lot of people up and down the board, a lot of rookies that are going to start. And I would be surprised to see a fair amount of rookies end up with Pro Bowl certifications this year.
Woo!
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on that, Tom. I thought I was shocked Brock Bowers went as late as he did. I think if you would have swapped your first round picks with Atlanta, I think everybody would have came out of the draft like, yeah, all our teams had a fantastic draft. We're all happy with it. There's a ton of talent in this year's draft. I feel like this is probably one of the more talented draft classes we've had in a while. Because you really look at every team that came out of it, and specifically our 4 teams, and nobody, apart from the Falcons, really had a bad draft. All our teams tackled, I feel like, the positions of need. Obviously, the Raiders didn't lock up a QB, which a lot of people wanted them to do, but they definitely set foundational pieces. But like you said, Tom, I think the one thing I would have changed is, you take Fuaga in the first round, because no matter what, like you said, whether you're rocking out Minshew or you're rocking out AOC 4, you're gonna want to protect him regardless. What's it called in Indianapolis? Man, I'm getting flamed on the pod.
Just because you got that creamsicle.
Rich, can I jump in? Can I jump in with one more quick thing before I got to go because we've got a flight coming?
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you all because the schedule is going to be released pretty soon. I'm gonna give you my predictions on who I think the first games are going to be for each team. Again, if I'm right, so be it. If not, whatever. But Kansas City, first of all, typically the Super Bowl champion has hosted an inter-conference game in week 1. I would not be surprised to see the Thursday night game, the leadoff, having Derek Carr and the New Orleans Saints traveling to Kansas City and having that be the opener.
Dang.
That's got a lot of intrigue there. If not, it's definitely going to be there. If they're going to go with an AFC opponent, you've got Cincinnati and Baltimore to choose from, both of which would be tough matchups.
I think the Texans would be a great matchup too.
Texans would also be a great matchup. Yes, I looked at that one as well. But if I had to pick, I would say the Chiefs and the Saints. Now, I think that the Chargers and the Raiders are a definite Week 1 potential matchup. Yeah. And I think it's going to be in L.A. Here's the reason why. For those who know, Jim Harbaugh was the last coach that Al Davis really made a hard play for before he passed away. And Harbaugh turned him down. And of course, all the signs were pointing for the Raiders to eventually return to LA. I think it'd be natural to have Harbaugh and Pierce square off in LA in game 1. So you have the Chargers and the Raiders. Now, as far as your Broncos go, I can see the Broncos and the Pittsburgh Steelers in the first week of the season.
Russ revenge tour.
Russell Wilson taking on his
Russ v. Peyton.
So
3-round fight.
Those are my calls here. So if I had to, and I haven't talked to anybody, haven't seen the inside information, but I say the Saints and the Chiefs. I see the Chargers and the Raiders, and then I see the Broncos and the Steelers, and that's your Week 1 potential matchups.
Tom, I love it, and I'm happy that you kept that call there to only 2 words, because according to all reports, that's all Russ could handle.
Oh man!
All right.
Oh come on, that was good.
That was good.
I'm gonna have to exit because I've got a flight coming in from Tampa here. So, but you all have a great evening. Everybody on the show. Hope to catch up with you all next week.
Yes, sir. Have a good
Appreciate
one,
it, Tom. Have a
Thank
good
you so
night.
much.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
And so guys, that was T3. You can catch him. He has a podcast of his own.
Live from the runway.
Literally live from the runway.
What other show you get that on? No.
Yeah, probably a view that none of us will ever see again from in an airport ever.
Yeah. Actually, we're gonna need to. Yeah, we probably need to scrap that. That's probably insider info. Yeah. Everyone forget you just saw that.
Yeah.
What airport?
Yeah, exactly.
Need to do the Men in Black eye exam. Just look at the camera.
So I actually think there's some interesting pieces there, and I did want to mention something to Tom, but obviously his time was limited, and we weren't able to really get into it.
Mm-hmm.
And so as an example, when you look at the way that the Raiders built, I thought they were so close to having that ideal draft in my mind. Love JPJ, absolutely love the pick. My only concern with what the Raiders did with that particular draft, and I didn't get a chance to ask Tom this, which is they drafted a tight end pretty high up in the draft last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Second round.
Second round.
The best available tight end.
And he was literally the best tight end in the draft last year by consensus.
Yeah, he's not Brock Bowers, though.
I would have to agree. Now, he may not be Brock Bowers, and that's fine. But the point is that an indictment on how they feel about their current tight end that's basically going to do a second year, right? Is that them saying you ain't good enough, my man? I guess what I'm trying to get at here is when you're building a stellar roster, like a roster that's going to sustain the test of time, when you have an opportunity to draft consensus number 1 offensive center in the 2024 NFL draft in JPJ, and you do it in the second round, which is just wrong.
Yeah,
like
when
just
he was
wrong.
Consistently,
they
said that he's not making it past 20.
Wrong. Yeah,
like he's not making it past 20, and they get him 20 picks after that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's just wrong, and all the kudos in the world for the Raiders for doing exactly, what all of us wish we could have done, right? Okay, so you got him. But then you have a young rookie quarterback. And if you're going to put forward an offensive line in front of him that's going to be great and truly say, hey, can you do the thing? Yes or no? You would then want to shore up a position that, and every Raiders fan that's ever come on the show, to my knowledge, who's agreed that they need a right tackle. You need to shore up that right tackle spot from now until in the future. And the consensus number 1 or 2 right tackle, certainly the best run blocking right tackle, was still on the board at that point, and then ended up going 1 pick later to the Saints.
And that's why I really thought he would go, because that was the kind of offense the Raiders ran last year. You pound the rock, let AOC or now Gardner Minshew. I'm assuming it's going to be Minshew the starter. I think he's the starter on the depth chart. Well, no, really, is it AOC?
I think it's a comp.
Oh, so they're gonna let him battle it out. Okay, whoever it is starting at QB for them, I mean, you got to give them a solid run game. Like a quarterback's best friend is the run game and protection. So you could have addressed two of those biggest needs with that one pick, and that's why I thought it made all the sense in the world. Credit to the Saints for not letting him fall past them. But yeah,
Seriously.
I think the Penix pick at 8 kind of sent a little bit of there was still some shock waves felt throughout with some picks.
I think
after.
they were going Penix, man.
I think they were too.
They for sure were planning on Penix being there.
Yeah.
And
My only
wasn't.
thing I would have wanted to see would have been if they didn't go to Penix, would the Broncos have then gone Penix instead of Nix? But if we're going like what Rich was saying last week, that Nix was Payton's number 2, then yeah, they were Nix all the way. But yeah, I want to see yeah, like Erica's saying in the chat, yeah, they need Josh Jacobs back. That if he would have stayed, that would have been then you look at it and it's like, okay, they got a solid run game, bona fide, do it all back. Like they got some they got some talent there, but with no solid, I mean, you don't know, no solid run game, no proven run game, I should say, and with
Zamir.
Zamir White and I don't even.
He did murder the Chiefs in that one game.
they will not let you.
Looks like he will murder some defenses. Just he's aesthetically pretty good looking RB, but
he does look good.
Like
so,
said,
but
unproven.
Yeah, he would have looked a lot better behind Fuaga. I feel like so.
Yeah, he needs to prove it game over game, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is the thing, right? Is Josh Jacobs was the guy that was able to do the thing
week in and week
game over game over game over game over game. And let's put it this way: when you have all 3 of your division rival teams who have a consensus, we don't want to play against that guy, you want to keep that guy, right? Like that's like, you know what I mean? Like that's like this should not be a challenge. This should not be something that is difficult for all of us to kind of eventually agree on. And kind of going back to what I was kind of getting at with Fuaga or shoring up at that right tackle spot for the Raiders in the draft. At T3, if you're still watching, go back and listen to my comment. I'm very curious in terms of what your thoughts are in terms of my comment and question about the tight end that you drafted and what that means for your team. We didn't get a chance to ask live on air, but curious in terms of, what your thoughts are. But when you have Fuaga or someone like him on the right side of your offensive line, and even if you then don't end up with your quarterback who's currently on your roster, you can safely then say that you can lock and shore up that gelling on that offensive line and say, I don't need to worry about that core unit that is basically an independent one on my team. I can now go up and trade 2 1s, maybe 2 1s and 2 2s, even if I absolutely have to then target my quarterback of the future that I actually want in the next draft or 2, and really start to field a rather dangerous team at that point, because then you have a quarterback on a rookie deal, so you're not paying that $50 million salary that the Chiefs and everyone else has set the market for. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, Alex. I'm just saying it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And you're getting a rookie quarterback who can allow you to pay those linemen who are then you're going to be able to assess, top right tackle maybe, or top left tackle, or your top center, and you can extend those for a longer period of time. And I think that's a good thing for the Raiders team if they wanted to do that.
Yeah.
Did you guys see the oh, sorry.
No. It wasn't going to be a great point anyways.
I just piggyback off of what we're talking about. Did you see the report? I think it was Mitchell, the corner from Toledo. He was on some radio show, and he said the Raiders called them and told them it was a coin flip between him and Brock Bowers. So that, I mean, who knows how accurate that is? But I would hope Buddy would not just go on a radio station and say that. It's like, man, if it was down to a coin flip, that kind of tells me that they thought they were going to get a QB there. And,
also, but why would you also tell him that?
I know. Why would you call a dude that you didn't draft and say, hey, man, if it was tails, we were going to take you? Like,
you had a 50-50 shot.
That's what I'm saying.
That's terrible, man. I'm sorry. That's like so disrespectful. As him, I'd be like, why are you calling me?
It was Arnold. Okay, I knew it was one of them. I saw it.
Oh
but
man.
yeah, I mean, but still, with that being said, I mean, I definitely, you could see, like we said last week, you could see outside of maybe the first round pick, that they made strategic draft choices to fill positions of need and guys that could do that quickly. So, you know, I'm like, I thought the Raiders had a great draft, and interesting to see how it all works out. And as for the Brock Bowers thing, I think it's more of, you're getting a guy that for sure should have been a top 5 pick, as well as offensive weapon, and what better safety security blanket to give your QB than 2 tight ends that are just rack machines and eat over the middle of the field, especially when you're losing Hunter Renfrow and you got Devontae Adams on the outside, and then Jacoby Myers still. So, I mean, I get the pick. It's just, I just thought that with that selection, they were probably planning to go QB and didn't think that 6 would go. First 8 picks, 9 picks, or whatever.
Yeah. Well, first 12 picks.
12.
Yeah.
Nick's was the last
because they were 13. So, and I don't disagree, actually. In my opinion, I always felt that the Raiders' best pick in the first round was Fuaga. I actually don't think you need to get a QB, because I think you have 2 somewhat talented QBs already in your team, and I certainly think that your QB room has got enough talent in it that you can be competitive. But the problem that we typically end up with in the NFL, especially with the good or great teams, and frankly, you need to only look that way to see what a pretty solid D line can do. When you have 2 to 3 solid rushers that you're facing on the other team, they can split both out wide and target that weak link, which is your right tackle. They can slide a guy inside if you have a weak interior, and then start getting pressure that way. And that's what the concern is that right now there are question marks on the Raiders' offensive line. And trust me, my Broncos are not anywhere near perfect, but you're also not going to hear me say that either. So we'll start there. And so that's my whole point, right? Which is, I think you had the draft capital to get what is effectively most people consensus lock as a solid run blocking right tackle, and you can kill it. And then imagine if you got the best center and one of the best run blocking right tackles in the NFL draft.
Dirty.
That would have been
The one thing I will say, though, is I'm interested to see how JPJ kind of takes over ownership of the line. I mean, I know they're kind of talking about the center guard, but I mean, we talked about it with Corey Linsley. You could see it with Creed Humphrey. I may be biased as a former center, but a center, especially one that knows how to make the calls and run the offense and set up your blocking schemes, makes your line 100 times better, regardless of who are the other 4 guys. So, in some aspects, if they hit on the JPJ pick, they might help out their right tackle a little better. And it could be someone that doesn't need to be Fuaga to be good. So that's why I thought it was good that they went center and he fell that far for them to get him, in the second round without making any moves. And that, I think he could be kind of more so the missing piece than, say a Fuaga or one of those other tackles, because of, his cerebral component that he brings to the table.
No, I don't disagree with that. It's just that when you look at your premium positions, you are I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it. But when you look at the premium positions, even amongst head coaches, I mean, look no further than that man's head coach right there. What position did he target? He went and said, left tackle, please.
Give me the people that move other people against their will.
And I think we spoke about it last show, but I'll say it again. I said it in multiple chats with the fans of the show as well as others.
We upgraded now.
I would say upgraded. Just forgot to charge the thing I usually use.
So what we saw from in LA, and I think you're going to see this happen likely for your Chargers there, is you're going to end up where Alt will be on the left, and you're going to end up with your stalwart like ending up on the right. I think too many people forget that he was consensus best right tackle in the draft when he was drafted, and it was not even close.
Yeah.
Like not even like it was like him, and then there's like
Penny Sewell at left and Rashawn Slater at right, and then everybody else.
Yeah, and then you happen to find out that you found like a unicorn at tackle who's like, oh no, I can do left and right, because it's fun.
Oh, you didn't think?
Oh,
I
cool.
good left tackle.
Yeah, cool.
Here's an all pro season for you.
Yeah, a few Pro Bowls and we're good, right? Like that's cool. You're all right with that, okay? And that's where you landed with Slater. But let's be real. When you talk to any tackle who is of any caliber that's even close to like Pro Bowl or Hall of Fame, the consensus is
left tackle.
When you are a gifted right tackle, your strength is on the right side because you've built up your physique and your technique surrounding playing the right side. Just because you got yourself a unicorn, good for you. He can swing over to the left if you absolutely need it, and you could throw some rando guard if you're, if you end up needing to. But at the same time, like you've got a unicorn, but you want to put that unicorn back where they're still strongest, and I believe that he is still strongest on the right side.
Yeah, I agree with that. The only thing that would kind of worry me, but then at the same time, you got to kind of trust this coaching staff and the direction they're going with this team. But the only thing that would worry me would be that Slater has already played consistent at left tackle for the past 3 years. He was injured for one of those, but him switching to the right would give me some pause because it's like, damn, he's already played. We've seen him play already at the highest level at left tackle. So would I mind it? No. I'm also kind of just at the point now where it's whatever Harbaugh and them decide. I'm supporting it. They're watching them and they're seeing them in practice and where their strengths are. So you know what, if he feels that Alt would be better served on the right and he's better on the right, I mean I can't be mad at it. Like you said, Slater's put up an multiple Pro Bowl seasons at left tackle. Like, thanks, I'll happily take that at left tackle. And then you have the behemoth 6'9", where if there's, and which they're from in our division, there's multiple pass rushers you got to be weary of. Yeah, I'm good with that. I'll take that every day of the week.
I agree. Now, before we go too deep into draft and all this kind of stuff, I want to kind of shimmy shake it back a little bit here, and I want to start discussing some news. I'm going to go first real quick with some news of my Denver Broncos. And this will be quite just a quick little, aside. For those of you who don't follow the Broncos or don't really know the roster composition, we obviously went out and got Zach Wilson. So basically soccer moms in Denver have been put on notice. But once that, bulletin went out, basically that was a bit of a nail in the coffin for Ben DiNucci. And it was just announced today that he's been cut from the team. Likely transaction will be processed.
No more DiNucci.
DiNucci.
In honor of
this Snokey's bad. Get it out.
Yeah. So DiNucci's been cut from the team, and that's going to reduce our quarterback room down to 3 again, which is kind of what I expected to see. It's unfortunate, but I also do think that I did him a solid because I think that they knew that he wasn't going to make the roster. And I think that by releasing him now, it put him in a position where he can get signed by another team. And I think he's good enough to make another team as a backup QB because he showed some real chops when he ended up playing in the feeder league there. He's
with the Cowboys, he was a Cowboys starting QB for like half the season.
He was good.
Terrible. I think that's why he still kind of sticks around.
Yeah.
Anytime you can get a backup that has in-game experience and for multiple games, it's always a good thing. Yeah, absolutely.
So I can totally see him. I can totally see him land with any team that has a rookie quarterback, but then doesn't have that solid veteran behind him. I could also see him land with a team that has an aging veteran that's potentially going to get hurt, where they want that
like the Saints,
pull cord, pull cord and break glass in case of fire.
That's a lot of cheddar.
Man.
So that's where I see that going. And so when we're looking at the Broncos, that's the only real news that kind of came out, and then we'll get into the Denver UDFAs shortly.
I want to throw real quick. We did actually sign someone over this past week too. We ended up signing DJ. Yeah, I know, right? Shocker.
No way.
Who saw that one coming?
Saw the shark.
Took another wide receiver.
Hey, he's a freak athlete.
He is a freak athlete, sub 4.4 speed. So I will say body. This. Big
essentially
body.
Mike Williams.
Yeah, he'll probably also get injured like Mike Williams. So, yeah, just cheaper. We have Mike Williams at home, and this is Mike Williams at home.
This is the great value, Mike Williams.
Yeah. This is the Kirkland.
Maybe
Mike
5
Williams.
games, but only a mil.
He might play only 5 games. He might have like 3 touchdowns in those 5 games. We'll take it. So
Walmart value brand right there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, seriously, it's literally like Mike Williams, like just older. But I like it. He's a fast receiver. It's just another wide receiver in the room to compete. I like that we're bringing in a lot of bodies. There was rumors that we were looking at MVS for a little bit. Kind of against that, although the only thing I'd be like is like, hey, you want to slide us that Chiefs playbook, and we can see what's what. But apart from that, I like what we got. It's going to be a bloodbath competing for it because yes, Mac is still with the Chargers. Dark. He restructured his deal. Him and Bosa went ahead and stayed on while we lost both our wide receivers.
Well, you don't have to worry about it too much. At least one or both of them will be hurt, although Mac is probably the least likely, believe it or not, to get hurt. But, yeah.
I got more confidence in Mac playing than I do Bosa, which is crazy.
Sad.
Yeah. But I don't know, DZ. I think Davis has significant value in the return game. I mean, he's probably been our best returner since I don't even know when. Like, I can't even remember the last, probably like Eddie Royal and
Benjamin.
Yeah, Travis Benjamin. Yeah, so I think he serves a valuable spot as the kick returner, and I mean he's just got insane speed. But we'll see what they do. It was just a kind of signing, just more depth, but we'll see what happens.
Sorry, I just want to quickly highlight this. Dark, just to be clear, I literally just said on the show, and by the way, if you can't read, this says Broncos here in front of it, that I actually thought that the Raiders had a fantastic draft, and I literally meant it. So let's simmer just a little bit. We're here to talk football. We're here to kind of razz a little bit on each other's teams, and that's cool. But I will always answer Raiders fans' questions 100%. And we are running a show, so we are doing our best to pull up as many comments as we can and interact with as many of you as we can. So thank you for joining. I know it's great.
That's pretty good, though.
Yeah.
That should be simmer, but hey, it's a thought that counts.
Yeah. So, anyways, as we that was funny. I'm not gonna lie, that is very funny. As we look forward to Alex, obviously the next.
I'm not answering your question because you're asking about Mahomes playing for the Raiders. Okay. Only thing I can tell you with that is get some help.
Oh man.
Those are the ones we wait till the end of the show.
Alex, basically the problem with that is the NFL has rules with the number of first-round picks that would be required for that to happen.
Yeah, it'd be like a Herschel Walker level trade. It was 3 years of all your draft picks.
The Raiders would need to acquire every other team's first-round draft pick, and even then, that might not be enough to get Mahomes.
I agree. So when we look ahead, Alex, this is obviously the next part. We do need to cover it, and
no news out of KC, so that's good.
Well, there was some news.
No, I'm kidding.
I'm going to fight you. I mean, sorry, that's right. That's right. What was that?
That's the attorney in me. Deny and deflect until I absolutely have to answer.
Yeah.
Objection. We're moving on.
Yeah.
No, but Rashee Rice just can't stay out of the news apparently. I talked about it last night a little bit on Coach's show with Kurt. But yeah, I mean, we had reports I think dropped yesterday and now I think it's been added to that police are looking into an alleged assault of a photographer when he was coming out of a nightclub in Dallas. Like, it's just like, dude does not get the the standard advice of, hey, why don't you lay low for a while until this clears out. And is going to a place called the Lit Kitchen, ironically enough, and just continuously making poor choices while already dealing with eight counts of 8 criminal counts for the speed racing incident and unfortunate accident. And now we'll see. This is kind of just the cherry on top. I know I said last night that I don't think ultimately this will add to any sort of suspension. I mean, he's getting suspended for sure half a season, regardless of, how the wreck plays out. I don't think that this will really add more because you look at, I think of like Devontae Adams last year or 2 years ago had a similar situation. Now, granted, wasn't coming out of a nightclub at 3 a.m., but, shoved/assaulted a photographer in Arrowhead. And, there was no suspensions or anything that came from that. And I would think the NFL would be a little more brash on some punishment on something that happens, with their product on their field rather than something off the field in downtown Dallas. But either way, the optics of it certainly aren't good. And I think that, I think we've already started to see questions of if he even remains with the Chiefs. And so, we'll see what happens. But yeah, not making the right choices. And I said last night, I think he just needs to kind of look in the mirror and realize that he's basically, hanging on by a thread off of the cliff of keeping the money train coming in.
And he's probably got his other hand with scissors.
Yeah. And the rest are his buddies like, come on, bro, let's go. Let's get lit. And he needs to just move back to KC, focus on football, and, keep his head in the sand. Because, I mean, he's in the mix with some bad circle, whether it's, high school family friends growing up or people from SMU. But, I mean, he's clearly rolling around with people that definitely don't have his best interest in mind. And he obviously can't make the right decision for himself on what's the best interest. So, it is what it is. But, not a good situation to be in.
No, it's rough.
So Rashee Rice is the dude that meme where you see the guy that says, hey, you need to go ahead and cut off that limb. And he's the dude that goes out to the end of the limb and then starts cutting the tree branch behind him. And that's Rice right now. Like literally, and it's real. Like I say that as a joke, but at the same time, I'm only half joking when I say it. He had an opportunity with the previous incident to look inwards and stop. And just stop.
Stop breaking the law.
Yeah. Like, just stop. And
there's a liar reference in there somewhere.
Yeah, that's
right.
Stop breaking the law, asshole.
Yeah. And here's a reasonably good example, right? Which is
that's good, Cowtown. I gotta give you that. Give you that credit.
Yeah. So here's an example: is Mahomes' brother is clearly got some issues, right? I think that's fair to say, fair.
Just putting it lightly.
Yeah, and yet Patrick has managed to realize that there's the way to go and there's the way not to go, right?
Yeah.
And yet his brother has just like thrown that out the window and said, "Here, hold my beer." And go ahead and do all the stupid things all the time, right? And so Patrick, had an opportunity to likely go down that road as well, because they would have had similar upbringings and so on and so forth. But Patrick clearly knew better. He was able to navigate that better. He was able to think. He was able to do the right thing. Maybe put better people around himself to not make stupid choices. All those sorts of things. Maybe not have a victim mentality and maybe have someone who says there's a piece of adversity there, I'm going to overcome it. Whereas maybe his brother has the exact opposite, to say, oh, poor me. Those are two different outlooks on life in terms of how you can approach the same situation and end up in two different outcomes. And so I do wonder if that's what we're dealing with here, is we're dealing with Rashid Rice, who has not looked inward, who has not taken the time to do the right things. And at some point, I do think Andy Reid needs to make a decision on this himself. I think he needs to either say, listen here, young man, you either do the thing or you don't do the thing. The time is now, effectively. And I know Andy Reid is big on second chances, but at some point, the dude's got to help himself.
Yeah, I think in terms of his suspension, the only thing that kind of gives me a little bit of belief that they'll tack on to whatever suspension he had was the fact that this entire situation with the crash isn't even like solved yet, and he's already having another run in.
Phasing him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like he was came this close to essentially ending someone else's life and in theory his own, because if that happened, he's gone, and you know it's a whole rug situation all over again. But to have that happen and not even realize or wake up in that, and to we're talking to his chair.
It's the hollow
riveting insight. But yeah, I think just that him getting involved already with his other situation not even being resolved yet is just really does not speak well to his character, and it doesn't speak well to what punishment he will receive, if any. And I say if any because if this dude doesn't get any punishment, there's going to be some talks throughout the league.
Oh yeah, no, I mean he's getting punishment, man, for sure.
Yeah,
that's my biggest thing is I just know, if that happened to me, the accident thing, if I was involved in that and I'm in his situation, I would not be doing anything else other than working out, catching footballs and hanging out in my house. And it's just damn, dude, why do you got to go out? I'm sure, I mean, knowing your situation, you have to know that every news outlet's going to try to get some damaging evidence of you doing something, or just to show that you don't care. And here you are.
and it's so
that's our hope now. Just put him in a song.
It's so sad too, because with Andy Reid, who is one of those coaches where he will give second chances, and he does believe in second chances. I mean, Travis Kelce is one of the biggest examples of that. Coming out of college, it was. Yeah, I think you even
third or fourth chance. He got kicked off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you even heard Jason kind of tell Reid called him. He's like, hey, is this dude worth it? Am I gonna get somebody out of him? And he's like, yeah, you will. And boy, did he! If you want to look at redemption careers, look no further than Travis Kelce.
But I will say the thing with Kelce though is he had his issues coming into the league, and you haven't heard anything about any problems with him. After the fact. I mean, earlier on, he was a little bit of a piece on the field, getting, personal foul calls and all this stuff. But I mean, in terms of off the field or doing stuff damaging to the team, none of that. Whereas Rice kind of had a similar narrative coming out of college, and we're seeing that be amplified more on Twitter now, where you see all these, just burner NFL accounts are several teams didn't even have Rice on their board because of character issues. But so, similar situation, given the chance to not, and, basically don't mess it up, and he's messing it up. So,
yeah, it's definitely a.
Richie took the invisibility cloak off, so that's good.
We're done talking to his chair.
That's an interesting question here. Actually, I kind of like this. I'm assuming you're talking about Jerry's kid that's with the Chargers, right?
Yes, sir. I think it's still. I mean, for any wide receiver, obviously the ideal situation is to go to the Chiefs because you get to play with that quarterback.
And they pass.
But
I mean, you just know they're going to
yeah, exactly. And they throw the ball. I don't think it was necessarily a bad situation coming to the Chargers either, though, because you have Herbert who can absolutely sling the rock.
And no competition.
Exactly.
No proven competition.
Right. You go to essentially a barren wide receiver room that, it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a fight for starting position. And he's coming from USC, in which he played with a strong-arm QB who could throw it 70 yards deep with the flick of the wrist. So I think his transition will be a lot smoother with the Chargers than it would have been with some other teams. But I mean, you can't go wrong with the Chiefs. I mean, look, they just make every wide receiver look like a starting caliber wide receiver. So
yeah.
Yeah. Well, if I'm looking at this, you have two questions to ask. One, is Brendan Rice going to even be close to where his dad ended up? And I think that your short answer is no, because we haven't really seen.
Damn, dude.
Sorry,
the odd one.
Sorry, let's put it this way. I can only think of a handful of players, and really only one in even recent memory, who has actually been better than their father, and that would be Peyton Manning.
Yeah. But it's like, I mean, you know how much pressure those kids have, like, their whole lives?
Yeah.
It's like, dude, your dad is the best wide receiver to ever play football. Like, you better, and you're a wide receiver too, like, you better be good. It's like all of Michael Jordan's kids, trash. Because they look at him, they're like, this is supposed to be Michael Jordan. Like, why am I not seeing Michael Jordan play? Or Bronny James, like, I mean, it's just so much pressure, like, your whole life. I think
the only one who is going to live up to it, or is certainly on the trajectory to live up to it, is Marvin Harrison.
No, Jr. Arch Manning as well.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm saying,
but Arch Manning was kind of ass. It's not like Peyton Manning was. I mean, it's not like he was. I mean, he was just the son of an NFL QB. He wasn't the son of like Arch Manning, perennial Super Bowl winning QB. Like, I think he was more known for throwing interceptions than doing anything else.
I mean, I feel like Eli even kind of, I mean, not even really. Eli did have a better career than Archie Manning. Like, both his sons kind of lived up to that. The reason I say Marvin is because Marvin Harrison was, at the time he retired, universally regarded as like a top 10 wide receiver of all time. Like, you could probably even throw top 5, I think, when he retired. It wasn't really that close. But I think he has the potential because he's taken everything that his dad taught him, and it's almost like he's kind of perfected it in in a strange way. You see him in college, and it's like for the last 2 years in college, it was undeniable he was the best wide receiver. It wasn't a matter of if he's going to be the first one taken in the class. It's a matter of when is he going to, enter the draft and how high is he going to go. So I think with Brendan Rice being drafted in the 7th and the fact that a lot of teams, I mean, he was projected like a 4th round pick. Like, the dude has talent. Let's not say that he, just because he was picked in the 7th that, he's a bust or whatever it may be, or obviously he's not going to live up to what his father did. He doesn't need to live up to what his father did. Okay, he just needs to be the best version of himself. And if he can apply that to the Chargers, that's all you're going to – I know Jim Harbaugh will get the absolute most out of all these players that he has on this roster. So if he does make the team and, he does make the 53-man, I will say, you know what? He earned it. It wouldn't have been just because, he's the son of the greatest wide receiver ever, or the argument for the greatest wide receiver ever. No, he put in the work. He studied the playbook. He did what he needed to do to earn his roster spot.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm going to pull up Biggie here. I think that's a great point. The real upside is that his dad's going to be there. And so you got to think like the son will bring the dad, and the dad will then start talking to the other players on the team, and they can start bouncing questions off of him. And, we spoke about this last show, actually, which was some of the best players make crappy coaches. Like they just do. They make awful coaches. But the thing with Rice though is he had to work every step in order to get to be his status. Like he didn't start out as a consensus like first overall
from
pick
like Mississippi Valley.
Yeah, he was like, he took the long road to get to be the best wide receiver of all time, consensus really at this point. And so then the question is like, okay, well, that could actually make a pretty good coach. In fact, that could even make a great coach. And he seems to, if memory serves correct, to be reluctant to want to coach. But with his son being there, that might change.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'd say another thing too with I think one allure with taking especially kids of professional athletes, like you look at Mahomes. I mean, dude was always poised even his rookie year because he knew going into it like what that entails. He wasn't the first one of his family to make it into a professional league. And so, taking someone that's kind of come from that bloodline, like they're going to know,
right.
They're going to be prepped a little bit of like, this is going to be wilder than you expect. And, this is what you need to focus on. And so, that they kind of half of the battle is completed for them. Then it's just up to them to put in the rest of the work to, put the performance on the field and make a name for themselves rather than being compared to, like their brother, dad, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree
exactly.
With that.
If you want to put up too, DZ's comment really quick too. I think with this is one of the biggest issues that a lot of players coming into the league face now. Not even so much just sons of former NFL greats. I think a lot of players have this issue where they take it too personally on social media, and a lot of these Twitter trolls and a lot of these people that just kind of say these wild takes purely for interactions. A lot of these players sometimes kind of take it to heart, and to that, I kind of just say, I feel like he won't have this issue because of his father, and because his father, I'm sure, implemented at a young age, like, you're going to get comparisons to me. Obviously, people are going to look at you and like, are you going to be the next Jerry Rice? Are you going to live up to your dad's name? So I think I would like to hope he would have implemented this in Brendan's head very early on, like, don't try to, don't live up to me, or don't try to, spend your career trying to be better than me. Just be, your best player, be the best player you can be. And I think if he just sticks to that mentality, the dude's got all the drive in the world.
Dude, is that the only thing I need to do to have you guys start losing games? Like, man, all I need to do is start being like the most aggressive troll towards every single one of your players. Like, I could totally do that, by the way. Like, I am great at it.
God, please don't. I can't stand Acho, man. Oh man, there's so many times where I wish I could go on that show.
That dude was on ESPN for like a month. That should tell you all you need to know. Okay, if he couldn't last long enough at ESPN, they weren't really vibing with what he's putting out. Now he just says outrageous things on Twitter, posts them himself on Twitter just to get interaction. So,
oh man,
it's. Yeah,
it is what it is, but it's
so
you know what it is.
I think we should move on because I want to make sure we have enough time to cover our UDFAs for all of the folks in the chat here. We're gonna pull up the question just in one sec, but let's quickly just summarize here. I want to know from each fan from the various fan bases, Broncos, Chiefs, Chargers, and Raiders. I want to know your top 3 UDFAs, the ones that that you've signed. Who are your top 3? We'll try to pull up the answers to that question shortly. So top 3 UDFAs that your team has signed. We will bring them on screen and we will discuss kind of each one, and we will go from there. Now, I do think out of all of our teams, I don't think this is speaking out of turn either. I think my Denver Broncos have generally done the best with
per
UDFA.
Richard. Denver did very well.
No, I meant historically.
Yeah.
No,
No.
I'm talking
Absolutely.
bigger picture.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to pop a collar or anything here, but I do think that my Denver Broncos have done, unbelievably well as it comes
Especially with running back.
Right. So, we got running backs that have been absolutely fantastic. Chris Harris Jr. as a undrafted free agent cornerback who was, number one in the league in various categories for several years running when he was at his prime. And we have a whole bunch of UDFAs that have been absolutely fantastic. And I do want it back on record on video again. My man CJ Anderson, when we got him as a UDFA, everyone else was laughing at me when I was posting out that he was the guy, and they're like, "Who's this CJ Anderson guy?" It's like, you need to watch him play.
Yeah.
Like, you just need to watch him play. I promise you, he's making the 53-man roster. And I have it. I have my handle that I posted it under of me predicting the day our UDFAs were solidified. I said CJ is making the 53-man roster, and that year obviously made the 53-man roster, and kind of the rest is history. But he is a fantastic player, running back for our team in recent history. Chris Harris Jr. is another guy, and we've had a few others. Philip Lindsay is another one that's been a little bit more recent than that as well. Philip Lindsay is a hometown hero for the Broncos because he came from CU.
Yeah, he lived in his parents' basement.
Yeah,
playing for the Broncos, dude.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And
wasn't he the first undrafted player to ever make a Pro Bowl? Or
Pro Bowl?
And I think back-to-back 1,000 yards.
Oh, in his first year. That's right.
Yeah. And he had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons in his rookie and second year in the league, which is pretty remarkable. The only problem, though, is he had a real struggle in blocking. He just never really developed as a pass pro guy. And so the problem is you kind of knew what you were running when you had him on the field because you couldn't have him pass pro.
Block. Yeah.
And so it was a bit of a telling sign, and it kind of became a little bit predictable. I wish he developed that element of his game, and I wish he kind of took the extra time to really focus on it. Because I would have loved to see him stick around with the team because he certainly had some good bursts. And it would have been a wonderful addition to our team.
He was a little undersized, wasn't he?
Yeah,
I think that yeah, kind of. Yeah, I knew he was. I will say that was one thing when Eckler, because he was an undrafted free agent for us too. Yeah, that's Antonio Gates would like a word, but that's an argument for another day. But I was gonna say with Eckler, he had that blocking aspect down to a T, and I think that was a big reason why he made the roster when he did as an undrafted free agent. He's always been a great blocker. That's something that Washington will get out of him, is they know when they put him back there in pass pro, he's gonna hold up his own. The dude's built. I will say that. For all that he died off as an actual running back, the dude can block.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. So when we look at all the things, Biggie, you and I go way back. I do know, you're a Broncos fan, all that good stuff. I do think that actually you could check my X feed, so I will own posting this and announce that I posted these sorts of things. I think we devolve conversations when we start pointing out team accomplishments. When we speak about individual accomplishments rather, I think you're kind of cross-talking at that point, and you're almost gaslighting the conversation a little bit because you're basically saying this player is really good, and then your response to that is yes, but the team never won stuff. And it's like, if you're talking about individual accomplishments, I think we need to talk about individual accomplishments and kind of keep it within that lane, and then you can have an honest dialogue as we're discussing these things. But I think when we start moving the goalposts as we're having these conversations, I think it makes it more difficult to have an honest conversation with one another. And honestly, I think those conversations need to happen. And so I think that's why I think that's why I get so frustrated with it, is that I think a lot of us are so focused on wanting to win the dialogue, right? Win the volley back and forth, that we're wanting to kind of shift things to allow ourselves to win. I think Antonio Gates and Rod Smith are excellent players in their own right at their various positions. And I think the real question then becomes, where do you put them on the sliding scale of all time at their individual positions? And then I do think some dialogue needs to go into the complexity and difficulty of their various positions that they played, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I'm obviously going to be slightly biased towards Rod as a Broncos fan, but I also don't think it's you can completely eliminate Antonio Gates from kind of that all-time undrafted free agent conversation. But I have other reasons, not just how many Super Bowls, how many MVPs, how many this, how many that. Why I think Rod edges out Gates just by a little bit. But Robert, that is a conversation for the two of us
for another day.
Have another day.
Yes,
but we can have that conversation.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
But I want us to have it on a level playing field where we can actually start discussing kind of the ins and outs and the nuances and all that kind of stuff. Moving onwards and upwards, though, guys. Moving on to the UDFAs, I want to see not the all-time UDFAs. I mean, this year's UDFAs mentioned in the comments in the chat.
Yes, sir.
So, Alex, I'm going to throw over to you first, since the Chiefs have not had a ton of stuff happen to them aside from their sophomore wide receiver who just wants to hit people.
Hey, Travis Kelce just announced casting for a TV show. So,
ooh, fun!
Got that.
Please keep doing all these. I need all these distractions. Keep piling them up, Chiefs, please.
Hey, still won it last year with the distractions, with the most distractions. So,
God damn, just go. Just
but yeah, no, I mean Chiefs were pretty aggressive in terms of UDFA. I think brought in 17 guys and then signed another wide receiver from I'm missing the name. I think Vanderbilt or Villanova that was invited to the rookie mini camp. But yeah, I mean, definitely some intriguing prospects that they brought in. I'd say the 4 that I'm probably the most intrigued about, and I think probably have the best chance of making the 53 and contributing. I'm going to list 4 mainly because 2 are running backs. But and those 2 are Imani Bailey from TCU and Carson Steele from UCLA, who I think, I mean, if both guys are freak athletes, definitely I think more towards Pacheco style back, like fast guys that are more hard runners. But I think both of those 2, considering the fact they haven't really brought anyone in to replace McKinnon, have a pretty good opportunity to compete for that third running back in the room / kind of third down pass back work. So intriguing to see what they do. But yeah, I mean, I know those are 2 guys that Veach named specifically when talking about the class of UDFAs that he was excited about, and kind of given his track record of finding, Isaiah Pacheco in the later round of a draft. Like, you got to feel pretty excited if he's naming those guys. And then Fabian Lovett Sr., D tackle from Florida State's another guy that I'm pretty excited about. He's kind of more of your Derek Nandi type, like just a big bodied, great run defender, maybe not totally polished in terms of pressure and passing downs, but I mean, those are good traits you want in a UDFA. And, if he's got the right motor, I think would fit in that room pretty well. And then, kind of just give you more younger depth and maybe a guy to learn from, Chris Jones, and find a way to scheme himself in. And then the last one I'd say is probably the most intriguing one, mainly because he was projected to be drafted I pretty high for being a UDFA, and that's Curtis Jacobs, a linebacker out of Penn State, who's pretty similar traits, I guess you say, and just like a freak athlete, off the chart RAS scores. If you go watch his film, he's kind of like I'd say like a hybrid Drew Tranquil, Willie Gay, like just pretty athletic, but still pretty raw. But I mean, considering they lost Willie Gay, and didn't really sign anyone, I think he has a pretty good opportunity to work his way, into a contributing spot, and maybe even into a more prominent rotation in the LB room. So for the Chiefs, I'd say those are the four most excited about. The rest of the guys, I mean, a lot of wide receivers, a few linemen, another tight end. But I think those four that I highlighted for sure have the best chance and greatest opportunity to, make a name for themselves.
Interesting. And I assume that one of the reasons why you think that, say, D lineman, for example, might, be an intriguing option is that there's probably room on your roster for someone like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, they did basically re-sign every D tackle, D lineman that they had last year, outside of, I think, Mike Pinnell. So, I mean, there's certainly a spot there, and I think it's kind of an aging room overall. So, if he puts in the work and produces the film, I think he has a good chance to be a depth piece, but also kind of maybe they look at him as kind of the answer down the road. When these guys kind of age themselves out, because I mean Chris Jones is 31, Derek Nandi they brought back, but he's 28, 29. Wharton is a small school guy that plays well in small samples. And then Mike Dana, they literally got off of a couch, right before a playoff game. So, I think he's got a good chance. Yeah. No, cool. I do not wear throwback Dallas Texans gear. Although I did have a shirt with the logo, but I didn't feel I felt kind of dirty wearing it because it's just the whole state of Texas, and then a chief running. I'm like, I'm not in Texas, so I don't like repping that.
That's fair. I feel like I wouldn't want to rep anything Texas either, especially if it's Cowboys related.
No. And now it's like they got a Tex, there's the Houston Texans, so it's like, yeah.
For our free agents, we got a ton of offensive side of the ball talent. Got a lot of wide receivers, tight ends, a lot of O linemen that we took. But three that stuck out to me, I went trenches with my picks here. For starters, I went with another Michigan kid. I went with Carson Barnhart. As you can see, my title in the or my nickname in the chat. I thought we would get Drake Nugent, the center.
Patriot, you're wrong for that one.
I really thought we would go after Nugent, the center, when we didn't draft a center. I thought it would make the most sense. But then he goes to San Francisco, so it's like, shit. Okay, kind of looking where are we going now. I like bringing him on, another Michigan guy, so obviously he knows Harbaugh's system, knows how he wants to run. Harbaugh knows him and what kind of blocking schemes he likes to run for him. I think has the potential to be kind of one of those swing guards that we have, just if somebody goes down with an injury, somebody you can plug right in, and you're not going to get that same kind of level of production, but you're not going to see such a deep decline to where it's like, oh, we have to address other protection to go help him, and it kind of ruins the flow we have going on with the rest of the line. So I like him. I would love to see him come on, see him compete. Went with another guard from Appalachian State, went with Bucky Williams. Dude was a 5-year starter. Guy's 6'2", 304. So he's a little bit small to be on the offensive line. But he will probably, again, it's going to be a competing group. You have your tackle set, you have the center quote unquote set, but you're really competing for that starting center position next year after we lose Bozeman on his 1-year deal that we got him to. So I'm very curious to see. I'm very excited to see some of these competitions go down. And then to top it off, I went with Savion Jackson out of North Carolina State. We actually took a top 30 visit with him, which kind of confused me a little bit. I wasn't sure why we did that. But apparently he was getting significant interest from the Rams, Niners, and the Broncos too. So, we'll take that. He's 6'2", 263. There's some rumors that he's going to try to kick inside that. He's more of a traditional edge rusher, but he'll probably kick inside to a 5 technique to start camp. So, we'll see. It's just a lot of it's going to be a lot of trenches guys that I'm excited to see compete. The wide receivers obviously are that room is kind of set. I'm not really looking too much at the undrafted guys we bring in. Somebody could absolutely, step up in any of these positions, but I think the trenches are where I'm going to be looking heavily most this spring, this off season, this
Certainly
camp going
been the
forward.
theme.
Yeah. This is Harbaugh's team for sure with some of these guys that we're bringing on.
Yeah, so I'll jump into the Broncos here real quick. I have a list of 6, and I think there's an outlier at 7 as well, which is gonna be interesting. But I'm gonna quickly just rattle off 2 names. 3 names: Blake Watson, Quinton Newsome, and Omar Brown. Specifically, Quinton Newsome and Omar Brown were brought in for top 30 visits, which makes which was interesting. Teams will choose to use those 30 visits for different purposes.
Yeah.
And the Broncos have been very interesting in how they chose to use those visits. And we went ahead and used them on the Nebraska guys. And I think it left a lasting impression as to why they signed with us as UDFAs. Broncos have a storied history of especially defensive backs and running backs as UDFAs that have come and made the roster and gone on to do great things. Jaquan McMillan is another guy who is a UDFA, who is a starting nickelback for us right now on our team, and he has shown to be a fantastic pickup for the Denver Broncos as a UDFA. And so we have definitely found kind of the diamonds in the rough in those undrafted free agents, and they go on to do some pretty great things for our team. And in McMillan's case, start. So that's a pretty solid. From UDFA to starting Nick. That ain't bad.
Hard to write a better story.
Yeah. Exactly. Hard to write like a better path, right? It's like I did the thing and I won the thing, and now I'm playing the thing.
Outside of bagging groceries at Hy-Vee and then winning a Super Bowl, but cannot be Kurt Warner.
No, exactly. Yeah. So that's Quinton Newsome and Omar Brown. Those are the 2 that we kind of brought in and really kind of gave a look to. Another guy, Nebraska guy. So that's 3 of them that were undrafted, signed by.
Cam Parker is happy about that one.
Yeah. Oh, Cam is all over that, like
Skurs, baby.
Yeah. And so, Blake Watson is a running back that we brought in as a UDFA. There's a tremendous amount of buzz around him as a player. Had a fantastic college career. Interesting stat: never fumbled the ball.
It's a good stat.
That's a pretty solid stat as a running back, right? That's a pretty good one. My issue with him is he's 5'9" and 195.
Yeah, just a little guy. He's like
Danny. It's like Danny Woodhead size.
So it's like a Danny Woodhead, kind of Philip Lindsay, kind of that in that elk. I have a bit of a problem with that. 1, can he pass pro? 2, we already have Jaleel McLaughlin. He's already on the roster and has proven himself to be an excellent player and an excellent pickup.
Has contributed already.
Yeah. He's already proven that he can go from college to NFL and look great at the NFL level. So, is there really room for another guy to kind of follow that trajectory?
And that was Peyton's guy, right?
Pardon me?
That was a Peyton pick, right? McLaughlin. Yeah. Yeah, so that's going to be tough to lose the spot.
Yeah.
And so then you look at the other guys on the roster: Javonte Williams, Samaje Perine, and then we drafted Estim. Now, I don't know if you've seen a picture of Estim. That dude is jacked.
Yeah, he's a specimen.
Yeah. And so I see those guys, like, I can totally see, and this is actually where I have an unpopular opinion. I actually think that Williams is going to get cut.
Wow. Just straight up cut? So who's beating him out?
Well, Perine had a better production last year. So unless Williams can come back and absolutely blow the doors off in preseason, the way I look at it is Perine showed that he could run a a version of the Peyton offense pretty well. And then you got McLaughlin. And then you're going to have Estem, who's going to likely make the roster because they want to develop him and they don't want to lose him. And so that's 3. And then Peyton always runs and rolls with a fullback.
Yeah.
Because if his offense, that's the way that it works.
That's the way the cookie crumbles, dude.
Yeah, exactly. And so most even run heavy teams don't go past 4 in the running backs room. So fullback takes out 1, and then you're left with 3 spots for runners.
Vikings, Cowtown. Just answer.
Yeah. So I just don't see that happening, and that's why I think that as much as I think Blake Watson, fantastic UDFA pickup, and I think you're going to see a few splash plays in preseason. Really, his only shot is to show that he is even better than Jaleel McLaughlin, and I'm not sure that's going to be possible given on-field play proven at an NFL level against real live bullets, last year, right? Like, he was pretty darn productive, that guy, and so you're going to have a hard time beating him out, in my opinion. So those are the Nebraska guys that I just kind of wanted to quickly cover. And then there's Frank Crum, offensive tackle out of Wyoming. I think that he is going to be he's a big dude. He's a strong dude, but he lacks in a little bit of his technique. And so I see him as either a practice squad guy or someone that they retain on the 53-man roster with the intention of development. And then the question is Plavlowski, who was hurt last year, but looked awesome. And I mean awesome last preseason, who was actually projected to make the 53-man roster as a swing tackle and likely potentially even as a starting right tackle. They actually had him potentially starting to challenge McGlinchey in some cases.
It's not. I mean, how much is that really saying?
Not much. But,
in terms of McGlinchey,
it depends on who you ask there, Mr. Robert. It depends on who you ask, right? If you ask me, that's a low bar.
Right.
If you ask others, they're like, I can't believe it. And take that with what you may. And let's just put it this way. I have called more games for the Broncos losing and gotten it right than those other people that are surprised by McGlinchey not looking good. I actually expected McGlinchey to look better than he did, in fairness, and I will call my own unfortunate predictions. I expected him to look better in a Peyton offense because I thought Peyton put his guys in better spots. Right. What I forgot, though, is the front office are not Peyton people. And that's where I've now adapted my mental math on this and why I've kind of adjusted down some of those recent signings. I think now we might be in a better spot, but I have to kind of wait and see how the different pieces gel. But Frank Crum, either 53-man roster or for sure practice squad, and may get called up because they're probably not going to want to lose him. Now, these next two are where I think it gets real interesting for my Denver Broncos real fast. We have Alex Mock, linebacker, inside backer of Air Force. That dude is a tank. Like an absolute tank. Like, he is a tackling machine. He tackles the way that I used to in rugby, which is actually rare. Most rugby players use forward momentum to bring a dude down. I lifted guys up and then drove them to the ground, which you're actually not really legally allowed to do anymore, but I don't care. I just don't.
Just don't come in Richie's zone, man.
Yeah. So
don't come in my zone, we won't have a problem.
Yeah, don't come in my zone, we won't have a problem. You come in my zone, you're gonna feel pain. And that was the plan, and the goal is knock the wind out of you, drive you to the ground, and hopefully you avoid me the rest of the game, and I'm fine with that. So as we look at Alex Mock, I actually think he has a reasonable shot at potentially making the Denver Broncos 53. I think he tackles well. I think he has a good running, and I think that he's going to show out on special teams, which will likely be, if you're looking at tiebreakers between guys, a reason why someone would make the 53-man roster. In addition to that, the Broncos actually have some precedent for this, legal term there for Mr. Givens. We have a guy by the name of Wesley Woodyard who made the team as an undrafted free agent with my Denver Broncos at the inside backer spot, who went on to do some pretty great things for our team and really did a good job at the inside backer spot. I could see Alex being kind of that guy who kind of re-ups that UDFA at the inside backer spot for us via Air Force. And last but not least, tight end Thomas Yasmin. And I believe that's the correct spelling or pronunciation, rather, of the last name. This should not come as a surprise that I like him. He is an Aussie who comes from rugby as a background. For those who follow rugby or know a little bit about it, he is a winger. And in rugby, those are the guys on the outside of the scrum that are typically deemed finishers of a play. So they are the guys that get past the ball last and drive the ball into the end zone, to steal the football term, to score. And so they are typically fast, shifty, and sometimes big. Yasmin is 6'5". That is rare air. That's a rare air for a winger in most schools. A lot of wingers are kind of in like the 6'2", kind of like speedster style mode, like almost like what you would get from, say, like a speedy running back or a speedy kind of like like a heavier wideout who maybe runs like a 4.4 or a 4.5 kind of deal,
like an Evan Ingram tight end kind of build.
Yeah, exactly, like someone like that. But this guy here is 6'5" and got a little bit more to him in terms of size, but he runs like an Ingram. And so I actually think that he's going to be someone, if I'm going to tell anyone to look out for in preseason, so long as he can stay healthy and continue to develop as a player in the NFL level, I think he's going to be a really, really interesting project. Another thing that I took note of when I was watching some of his film and tape, he catches the ball with his hands, not his body. That is a rare trait for young guys that are coming out of college. That, by the way, comes from rugby because that's how you're taught. And so I think it's a great transition to show that some of those skill sets actually matter.
Maybe Quentin Johnson needs to go play some rugby so he can learn how to catch. I think that would really help him.
Yeah. And another thing to keep in mind is that because he comes from a rugby background, he's used to playing in tight spaces and playing through contact, right? So you have a lot of wideouts or pass catching guys that are just not used to playing kind of bang bang or even contact, aggressive plays like that. Whereas this dude here, like, that's a Tuesday for him.
Yeah.
Right.
He's like asking to get pressed. He's like, please come here.
Come on.
Yeah. And so I actually think that he's one of the more interesting guys that we signed as a UDFA. And if you're going to ask me which guy I think has probably the best chance out of all of them, it's a tie, in my opinion, between Alex Mock and Thomas Yasmin, simply because of where I believe openings exist on our roster, and also because they fit certain molds that we currently don't have on the team, and that there's certainly room for on the team. So there's definitely room for linebacker depth. There's definitely room for tight end depth. And then the question is who then gets cut as a result of that? And I think some Broncos fans may not like some of the guys that get cut as a result of these players. But I think as Broncos fans, we also need to ask ourselves, have we really won much? Have we done well lately? So are the guys we currently have on the team really the best that we should have? And I think if we're going to be honest, the answer is no.
I think my answer to that, TJ, would, and maybe this is just a little bit of recency bias, but I think Jordan Mailata might have to definitely be in that spot.
Yeah, I think he's probably the only one.
No.
I mean, to get a massive money like he's got,
that contract.
You got like $80 million. I mean,
and he was worth every dime, man. He's a specimen on the field.
So TJ, I think that's what the interesting piece is when you transition from the NFL from rugby, is guys that I expected to do better didn't, and I don't fully understand why. There's been a few rugby players that I thought should do better. So, for example, Mailata is a guy that played in the scrum and also flanked out, and so he's used to that real aggressive, style of play, and he's transitioned very well to the NFL. I think guys that typically play in the backfield in rugby, and then guys that are kind of in that like weird, wonky size and frame that play rugby, because rugby is a very, very high collision sport that's more akin to running back in the NFL, or even kind of like a tight end style position in the NFL. Those guys have typically not transitioned as well as I thought they otherwise should. And I think it's in part because they're not used to the aggressive hit, like single impact hit that they get when they have the ball in their hand. Because rugby, like football, has been softened to a point where it is no longer the sport that I once played. When I played rugby, and I will literally quote a ref when I played, which was the baby making parts are the only areas that are off limits. and I will be honest, like there were dudes that were getting tackled by their mouths, by fingers, and were being physically ripped to the ground.
God damn.
And like that was not uncommon. Like I have stories, like legit stories of like insane stuff that like American football players are like, no way. I was like, no, there's video of it somewhere when I was playing, like somewhere.
Yeah, it's out there.
And then like, for example, like in football, you can't grab a guy by kind of like this part of his jersey,
collarbone,
right? Because it's a horse collar tackle in football. Whereas like there was a video that one of my buddies took when I was playing where a guy was two hands swing tackled like a tomahawk to the sideline by his jersey. Jesus. And just literally thrown into the crowd.
Like UFC, man.
Yeah, like physically thrown into the crowd, right? And so these things are not, so these things are not uncommon. They're not necessarily things that don't happen in rugby game. But even rugby, like football, you see like the head tackles. The other area they didn't let you tackle, although it was often kind of ignored,
if they saw it,
was the neck area. And so that was really it. And almost everything else is on limit. So you got to see these rugby players when they come here. I always expected them to do better because football has so many more rules, and you're fully padded, like with an exoskeleton. Like, like you're so much more protected.
For a lot of those guys, that's the issue with transitioning. They're used to just being in their own skin, their own body, nothing really. They've grown accustomed to taking those hits. So now it's like adjusting to that entire lifestyle of it is, you're getting hit, but it's a different kind of being hit, where it's not just one man, and one man and another man, and it's just, we're gonna, whoever wins. Yeah, exactly. There is I will say there is a little bit more technique in how you get hit in the NFL and in the leverages, some of these linebackers are able to use, or these D linemen are able to use. So I mean, like that could definitely be part of it.
Years of experience of using it.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask you this, Richie, because I mean, I don't really like, other than seeing some rugby highlights, like I don't really know much about what goes into how the game is played. But I mean, so it obviously watching stuff, it seems like there's some form of like a playbook with plays or formations they run. But I would think, from a transitioning rugby player to the NFL that's more in the skill position type category, I think probably the biggest hurdle is learning the terminology that goes into an offense in football. And then on top of just digesting probably a little bit more complex playbook with the amount of, like, if you're talking about a guy that's at running back, or like, the guy the Chiefs got, they're talking about like a tweener running back receiver. I mean, think about all the different motions and, sets that you'd have to remember to be in.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably whereas, Mulata, like he's just a giant dancing bear. And like, if he knows how to manhandle someone and block, like they can work around learning the playbook. Yeah. Like, the left guard could just say, hey, don't let him get outside. I got your inside gap. Okay, cool.
Then, like, got it.
but you think of like a running, like the Luis Zimmett, who the Chiefs have. Like, I mean, it's going to be harder for him to crack the playbook so quickly, get all the terminology down, especially in a Andy Reid offense, and then produce on the field. But and that's why I was curious. One, what I guess how much more watered down, if it even is like a rugby playbook to, a NFL offense. And then, what kind of category would you put the guy, like you were talking about Mulata being in the scrum versus, outside, more running back types? Like is the guy the Chiefs signed more of like a winger? Or, what?
Yeah, he's more in that. He's more in that kind of ilk. He's in that vein of style of player.
Okay.
Mulata, for example, I played in the scrum. So when you look at the way the scrum is situated in rugby, you have your two props that are at the front. You have your hooker that's in the middle. Yes, in the middle.
Oh yeah, I like the sport already.
There's some comedy there already. And then I played in the second row. In the scrum, which is just behind the two props.
You were the B squad.
And so what my position also did was that we were also the ones that were hoisted up for the lineouts to catch the ball when they were being tossed in from the side. And so as soon as I landed on the ground after catching the ball from the lineout, my back immediately got like spearheaded with the dude's head.
Jesus Christ.
And so it was a unique position, a unique sport, something a little bit different from football, something that you're not familiar with. Let's put it this way. I had multiple people come and tell me, I have a bunch of friends that live in the States, like tons of them. And they all said, dude, you would kill it as a lineman. Like, and I mean, kill it. And then I had another dude that said that because I can catch really well, like one-handed catches and stuff, that because my height and size, I'd probably make a great tight end as well, just because I'm used to blocking. So I can block in line, but I can also flank out and then catch the ball when I need to as well. So tight end is probably the best proxy for like a winger in the NFL, something like that, or a wide out running back kind of combo sort of deal. And that's why you see these rugby guys always try to go to running back or wide receiver or lineman. They don't really fit any other position. The only other spot that I'm very surprised that these guys never transitioned to, because it's actually where I felt the most comfortable when I ever did play football, is I love playing linebacker.
I was going to say the same exact thing.
I loved playing linebacker. And the one thing that I was really good at when I played rugby was I would square dudes up. Like, I mean, square them up.
Ray Lewis hit stick on them.
Yeah, I had opposing coaches come up to me and said, "I hope I never play you again,
son."
Yeah, I hope I never play you again.
Oh, you're squaring dudes up out here.
Yeah, because like in rugby, what you typically see in terms of tackles is they use the forward momentum of the opposing player against you. Because in rugby, you don't really care about the yards that you gain after the catch. If you stop them with like a yard or two, that's really not the end of the world. In football, every yard counts, right? So you want to stop them dead and not have them move forward. But in rugby, if they get that extra yard, it's not that big of a deal. However, what I used to like to do is I said, well, I can absorb the hit. I don't care about that. I want to make sure you feel pain. And
you sound like Shannon Sharp.
Yeah. I want to make sure you feel pain. Like, I don't want you coming up against me again. In fact, I want you, when you see me, to say, "Oh crap," right? And so,
again.
I'm gonna rip your head off.
Yeah. So I used to square a guy up, and I used to get the guy here, and then so I would go real low, and then I'd lift the guy clear up, and then drive them into the ground.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And when you got to think, when you're running at like full clip, and so at
That transition is pretty good to linebacker.
Yeah, that's basically a linebacker play, right? Like, so I always loved playing linebacker when I played football because I felt that was a position that I was comfortable with, and I felt that I could wrap a guy and just drive them in, which is more of a football play.
Do you think it's more of the covering aspect of playing linebacker? Do you think that gives them some issues?
Because
I feel like
in the play,
no,
they run
what Alex
the
said.
show. I mean, they got it.
No, it's what Alex said. Rugby is more predictable. Rugby is far more predictable. So when you come out of the scrum, the ball comes out to a predictable spot. It's either going right or it's going left. It's like that's it. Like you have two choices, right? And there's a few trick plays that happen. So for example, you can sometimes kick it directly out to your winger and have them run it down the sideline. It doesn't happen very often, but sometimes it does. Or your flank, sometimes it comes out that way. But in rugby versus football, and this is very applicable to you, Alex, and frankly, I think a little bit applicable to Thomas Yasmin that I was just talking about, is everything in rugby is generally predictable. So the question that becomes is, how are you running your crossing passes? That's where the playbook comes in. Who are you lining up in the backfield in terms of size, speed, combinations? How are you then going to address the knockdowns where you kind of knock the ball and kick it forward? Who's going to be on the field at that point? Who's going to be the recovery guy? Who's going to be the one that's then going to receive the pass when they get it at the other end of the field, so on and so forth. And that's Aussie rules football. I actually played British rules, which is there is no kick forward. You typically don't have that. You generally only end up with just passing, which is kind of the difference between Aussie and non-Aussie rules rugby. Most of these football players come from Aussie rules.
So what I'm hearing is for that position in particular, you're not using a ton of your instincts because, like you said, the ball where it's going it's kind of predictable where it's going, and very rarely does it go somewhere that it's not supposed to. So I think that is probably, if I were to guess, that would probably be, I think, the hardest transition for them, because playing linebacker is very instinct driven. Yeah, it's very about kind of
you don't see them transition to it. That's my point, right? That's why you don't see them transition to it. But it's also why I'm a bit surprised, because running back is a very physical position. I will say, from what I've seen at the NFL level, I would argue that I've had to fight through much tougher crowds in rugby games.
I'm sure.
You see the highlights, Alex. Like when you watch it, it's like dude, there's like 9 dudes jumping on the guy's back.
Yeah.
They don't blow the whistle after no forward progress.
And there's no like padding or anything to use to help block those guys. So it's just a bunch of bodies,
Yeah. And so like other things that take place in rugby is you'll get blindside hit across the back of the head or side of the head. You'll get a dude that'll come and literally just start uppercutting you to the gut when no one's watching. Like all that stuff happens. The goal is as long as you don't get caught, it's fine.
What's that one movie where the dude's like running the ball and he has the gun and he's just shooting everyone? It kind of sounds like that's what rugby's like.
No, but there's a lot of stuff that you just don't see on camera, right? But it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It just means you don't see it on camera, and it does happen. And so that's why I'm always surprised that like running backs don't do better as a transition to rugby, because to me that would be that's like a natural transition from A to B. Wide receivers as like punt returners and stuff, I always see as a natural transition from one sport to the other. Those sorts of things. I totally agree though. Like a linebacker in the NFL level, you have to have those instincts. But at the same time, if I can absorb a hit, then at some point, I think we're going to see a rugby player transition to a linebacker, and they're going to be a pretty special player just because they're wired different.
Well, that's why
they're just wired. Like they are insane. Like they are absolutely 100% crazy town.
That's why I would thought they would transition well to the D line, because it's all about, like you said, you're straight moving people trying to go and tackle somebody else, the quarterback. So I feel like they're
not big enough.
Yeah,
that's
they're not big enough.
You basically got 5 mulattas who all have 15 plus years of experience blocking.
Here's the problem: they have the strength, but they don't have the weight,
the leverage,
because they're always running. And so the problem is you end up the fitness level that's like through the bloody roof. Like, you got to remember, you're getting a dude like this guy here, Thomas Yasim, is 6'5" and like 270 pounds, and he probably runs like a 4.5.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's good.
Right. And so you're like, oh my gosh, like that is insane. You're right, it is insane. It's absolutely nuts. But the problem is that the guys in the scrum are like 6'4", 6'5", but they're like 295, and they all run 4.5, 4.6. Right, all of them, every single one of them. And that's the problem, is that they don't have the weight. They don't have the physical, like the rugby dudes are built different because they have to still run. They can't just sit there and throw dudes off the ball. They have to be able to run as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like you said too, Alex, the technique that a lot of these O linemen now, the footwork, I feel like is a really big part of it as well, especially those tackle positions. And that's why it's the premium position. Everybody tries to find the next Trent Williams.
And I mean, at the higher level you get, the more it's like, oh, just be physical, just be physical and hit this gap. It's like, yeah, I mean, that's great. And that's what
you can only say that for so long.
Yeah. You also got this dude across from you who is the best athlete and squats, 800 pounds and has been doing it for 10 plus years. So
yeah,
it makes it harder.
That's true.
But yeah, I just got a little rugby rundown there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really the difference, and that's why I said to you when you guys first signed him, as like, he's going to be a great return guy in my opinion, because I think that he's got the ability to run through tight spaces. He'll have the ability to get skinny. He'll hold onto the ball. He'll hold onto the ball when he gets hit, because that's what you're trained to do as a rugby player, and especially a dude that's played as often as much as he has. And not only that, it's not like he was like some scrub.
No, he's at like the highest level.
He was like the best of the best, right?
Yeah.
And so like the dude's gonna hold onto the ball. He's not gonna fumble the ball. I do think that what you're gonna end up with a dude like that, though, is he's not used to other guys, including himself, wearing an exoskeleton.
Yeah.
And that's a transition in and of itself. Like, for me, I found that when I played hockey and when I played football, I felt that both pads in both sports were very restrictive. And I had difficulty seeing just the outside peripherals, which obviously playing rugby allowed me to see like everything.
Yeah.
But then when the helmet went on, I was kind of like blocked from seeing like the immediate sides. And that took a lot of getting used to from a transitionary, like a sport perspective. And I just think a lot of people don't recognize that there are differences between the sports, but the toughness is going to be there. The grit will be there. And I think that's the one thing you're going to see is, it could be a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know, we'll see, is he probably will never go down on first contact.
You love that as a kick of a kick returner or punt returner.
Yeah. But the problem is that going to lend itself to him holding to the ball and then a dude's shoulder pad knocking his hand? And I mean, I don't care who you are, hard plastic is hard plastic. Yeah. Right? And it can force your hand to force your hand to kind of do one of these, even just because you're not used to it.
And instinctively, your body's like, what is happening?
Yeah, it kind of wants to do that, right? And so that'll be an interesting piece, I think, for the Chiefs as well. Now, is he a tryout player, or did you just outright sign him?
No, they signed him.
Yeah, they signed
2-3 year deal.
Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, so far, pretty good. I mean, Andy Reid's talked about him a few times, and basically kind of raved about how impressed he is with how much he's picking up already. So, certainly excited about it. But yeah, that'll be a big tell. But I mean, I think back in recent years, there's been other guys that I think kind of have a similar rugby skill set that, I think of the guy with like Dwelly or whatever that the 49ers signed, and then didn't hear anything about him. And so that's why I'm kind of like, I don't know if they're talking about him now just to try to hype him up or if it's actually something. So it'll be exciting to see for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I actually think the better transition is going to be someone like a Thomas Yassam or someone like the gentleman we were talking about before, Malaka.
Yeah.
Those are the dudes that are going to transition better. Those are the position groups that are going to do better at the NFL. They're used to moving. They're used to being nimble. They're used to, like, the thing with the rugby scrum is you have to constantly churn and move your feet. You have to, like, that is not an option. And so I actually think that the alignment is probably even a better transition to the NFL, just because you're within a box.
Yeah.
And as long as you can own the telephone booth, you're good. So with regards to the Raiders,
we did get Cowtown. He put a name up here, which then I looked him up, and he certainly seems like a pretty exciting UDFA.
Dwight McLaughlin.
No.
Oh.
Dude, kick returner mostly, but listen, I mean, this is the stats I got on this guy. So he averaged 32.3 yards per return.
God damn.
And was clocked running 22 miles an hour. Like,
that's pretty good.
A velociraptor.
Damn.
Yeah, just
they also
they are not excited about that.
What's his size?
I can't imagine very big. I don't know though. I'm gonna guess. There's my blind guess. About 5'9", $190. That's my guess.
5'9", $190. Oh, Richie's gonna be on the prowl with that.
5'10", $180. So I was pretty damn close.
Not bad.
Okay.
With that speed, that's not bad at all.
That's not awful, actually.
No. They played at Mississippi State. I mean, that's SEC football.
That's a good prospect, and then the next question there is, can the returner then transition to polish route running and some other things, because that really makes him an incredibly valuable asset to the team.
Can he pull the Tyreek route?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. So I agree, actually, Cowtown. I think that's a great pickup for you guys, and you hope that your coaching staff can develop him into something a little bit more
substantial. With the new kickoff rules, certainly, I think, intriguing for that. Because I honestly think, just with the unknown, like just how new that's going to be, like we're going to see an uptick in kick returns, and that kind of become a more, like, I know we talked about it when I think we talked about the rule, like back in the day, it seemed every team kind of had a dude that was like, receiver, but he was more there to just return kicks, and you could see it when they return kicks. And I think we're going to get back to that. So, we see, that's why we see in teams kind of stress that and get return guys. And I think he'll have a pretty good shot to contribute early and often in that regard.
I like the new kickoff rules because I feel like they bring back that third side of football that people often forget. It's offense, defense, and special teams are the three phases of football, and we see time and time again that special teams is a big part of why teams win. Special teams, special plays, special players. It's a big reason why some of these teams are bounced from playoffs or bounced from the Super Bowl, and we see it. I mean, you go back to the Ravens Super Bowl. That Jacoby Jones kickoff or kick halftime. Yeah, that was the dagger. They won by a touchdown. It was that touchdown they got coming out of the half. So I feel like it's going to be great for the game to finally have this third phase that's often overlooked finally have a big impact.
Yeah. So really, the last returner that we really had that had a name for himself still in the league, Cordell Patterson, right? No, Cordell Patterson, right? Like he was the last guy that really had that name for himself as being a difference maker. And frankly, Bill Belichick was really the one dude that really valued special teams in a huge way, and he really practiced all of the nuances. Yeah. Now, when you look at the one that really defined in many regards kind of what a returner could do for you in terms of
Devin
everything,
Hester.
you're talking Devin Hester. You're like that's
Dante Hall, maybe. I don't know. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. But yeah, no, Devin Hester for sure.
Like let's just be real. Like that's who you're thinking of when you first hear like return guy, right? And
look at the Super Bowl. I mean, they went to the Super Bowl and he returned a kick, and that Bears team was like, that was a big reason why they were in it.
Yeah. So I think the league is trying to make that whole area and phase of the game a little bit more relevant again, because I think they also realize that there's an increased fan base that's come in because they have a lot of whiz bang in terms of the offense. But then I also think that they recognize that special teams, when you return for a touchdown, is whiz bang as well, right? Like there's a lot of like, oh my God, did you just see? did you just see that? And I think that those make for equally impressive highlights. And I think the NFL is really trying to go for the clippable social highlight reel stuff that they really want to be able to promote and highlight out there. I'm just going to wait just a couple more minutes here, guys. Any other Raiders fans that would like to post some of their favorite UDFA players that the Raiders have brought in? I want to maybe get a little bit more on the Raiders side here if we can. I agree.
Bring a
Rick,
QB in.
I agree, Rick. The Raiders did get some great help in the trenches, 100%. In fact, I covered that earlier in the podcast. I think we all basically agreed with that as well. Some super, super interesting UDFAs across the board in our division. Overall.
They got Gus Bradley's son, QB, UDFA.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean,
another legacy pick.
Yeah, and what will be interesting is to see if Gus Bradley's son was a pickup as a bring into culture, and then maybe transition to coach sort of thing. That could be an interesting option for someone like that, because a QB has got kind of the knowledge of the entirety of the field, and that can be a really interesting transition for someone that might not necessarily make it the NFL level, but has the IQ, like the football IQ, to, really be able to eye and coach and kind of drive things forward.
They did bring in Jalen Guyton as well.
Yes, they did.
Former Charger. They did sign him to a 1-year deal, I believe. So just another deep threat, speedy guy, was good with Herbert. So, just another weapon, another body in training camp.
Yeah, I'd say just looking at the look like there's 17 guys here is kind of just like spray across across the board at all positions. You can tell, which I think that's kind of the UDFA class you want when you're trying to change a culture and get guys in the building that kind of will drink the Kool-Aid a little bit. I see a lot of linemen, so maybe I know Coker from TCU is one that people talked about might have a chance and a tackle. So I think that's, like I said, kind of the UDFA class you would want.
Culture changing.
Yeah.
Culture changing guys that can buy into the new coach's regime, guys that want to they want to be Raiders, the guys that want to kind of go down that direction and do those sorts of things. I completely agree, especially when you are trying to change how the team was run and viewed from the previous regime that did not do very well. What will also be interesting, just because obviously I have some unique experience as a Broncos fan, having also had McDaniels fired from my team, is the interesting piece that McDaniels had in Denver was, while he didn't do well at the end, a lot of his players actually did do well when they transitioned into the coach that came behind him, which kind of almost goes to show
we already kind of saw it too.
Yeah, which kind of goes to show that it's not necessarily that McDaniels was maybe a poor talent evaluator overall. I think he actually could pick some guys that were actually okay. However, he just didn't know how to coach them and fit them into a system, right? And so I find that really interesting, that, it'll be very, very interesting from my perspective to see how many of McDaniels' regime picks are retained by the Raiders and then go on to actually be excellent football players within the new regime, because the Broncos saw a fair amount of that.
Well, I know you've mentioned before too that that 2015 Super Bowl, some of those key pieces were McDaniels' building blocks. So
they were. They were.
I think McDaniels' thing is he's just not he can't vibe with his players. You can just see,
Yeah.
like, I remember reading a thing that it was I think it was the Denver players talked about how, like, at the end of camp he brought in an ice cream truck and, like, thought that everyone would think that was the coolest thing. It's like, dog, these are like 20-plus-year-old grown men, like, that make millions of dollars. Thinking ice cream truck's really gonna do that for you?
Oh, hell no.
Yeah. So that's my point, right? Is that it's I think there were some pieces that the regime got rid of, which I actually think they did a good job to remove from the building, because I think there were some challenges there. I think in terms of how they were gelling with the team, and
that's one thing we can all get on board with.
I agree.
Not a good coach.
I think he's not a great coach, and not everyone is fit or is meant to progress to the next level in the NFL coaching kind of tree hierarchy structure. Some people are
the Belichick tree.
Yeah,
some people are just meant to be carried by Brady their entire careers.
Well, there's that, or there's the fact that some guys are just better suited to sift through the details and not be
a leader of men,
like the leader, like the guy
be the voice
followed. Yeah. So, and I think there's some people that are like that, and I also think there's some guys that are better suited for veterans as opposed to rookies and younger guys. I think there's some people that have incredibly complicated systems and complex systems with a lot of nuance and all that sort of thing, and I just think they're not meant for younger rookie guys, because the rookies are having to learn. And if those guys that have all this complex verbiage and all the other stuff, you can't transition to a young guy.
Yeah, this times 100, Rick. Yeah, it's gonna be. I was thinking about this the other day too. I'm so excited for camp to start. I'm so excited to see the new look of our teams, kind of seeing how they mesh. What I'm not looking forward to, and I know it's bound to happen, and you just knock on wood and hope that it's really any major pieces. The injuries, sadly, will start coming, and obviously as we go along with the pod and we go through training camp and all that, we'll talk about them. But this is probably the most optimistic any of us will look, because right now all our teams are 100% healthy, and all the potential is still on the table until eventually our hearts and souls are ripped out by the football gods. But until we get there, we're gonna enjoy this elation.
Yeah. So we've kind of covered all the UDFAs, and we're gonna start drilling down into some other elements of our teams, including where these players fit. We'll get some information from the rookie camps that are going to start coming out over the next few weeks. And obviously one of our teams has already had theirs and whatnot. And so we're going to get some interesting information that is going to come from that. We're going to go through camp and OTAs and all that other kind of stuff, and the lead into the preseason, and a whole bunch of really interesting things. And until we start getting into those weeds, we will have some fantastic content, including a look ahead to some of our upcoming opponents. We're going to want to discuss to see how our team maybe fits against those opponents and all that stuff. My understanding, for all those who are still with us live, I appreciate you. Thank you. Click those like buttons on each of our videos. It helps us reach more people just like you. And if you have any comments or questions, leave them down below. We'll do our best to circle back and get those answered for you as well. My understanding, guys, is Wednesday next is when the schedule gets released proper. And so I think that'll be an interesting
schedule show.
Yeah, that'll be a real interesting thing to kind of break down and discuss, kind of go over how the teams look and how we stack against others and all that kind of stuff. But until next week, where the West Side is the best side. Peace.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle. Wait a minute,